I also did a lot of painting in lockdown. I really got into my painting. I did Grayson's Art Club, which was one of my favourite things I've been involved in. It's such a lovely programme, that, isn't it? I painted Chris Whitty. That's my painting of Chris Whitty. Saying, "Wash your filthy pig hands," which is, I believe, a direct quote. And it's very fortunate. This ended up in Manchester Art Gallery, and they said, they sent this email. They said, "You're in the art gallery. We need to know the name of the piece, the artist's name, and the mediums." That's like the bits that go into making the painting. I'd been drinking when I replied to this email. I called it the Itty Bitty Titty Chris Whitty Committee. The artist's name was Hugo Boss. That was my name at the time. It's a long story. You'll have to Google it later. It's a long story. The medium was acrylic paint. That's what I normally use. And then there were some other bits in there, like oil paint and watercolour paint and that kind of thing. And then because I'd been drinking, I just started listing things. It was like olive oil, soil, boiled oil, olive oil, soil. I mean, really lost my mind on this one. Properly, like 7 fresh piglets. A kitten's first memory. Meow went into the painting, just put some meow in there. Then I started listing actual mediums. Derek Acora. Psychic Sally. I finished it all off with loads of Alan Sugar at the finish. Loads of Alan Sugar. Got to Manchester Art Gallery, they printed the whole thing. There it is. Every last one of the bastards. Including my favourite, goat's milk, ghost's milk, ghost goat's milk. Ghost goat wandering around being milked for my paintings. Thank you for the suggestion of downing it, or down it street, as you might say. But, no. I decided I was going to turn King's Heath into a gay village. That's what's been obsessing every waking moment since that day. Let me tell you what happened. I had no idea how a gay village starts. I just sort of presumed Jane McDonald shows up and sort of circles the area like a dog looking for somewhere to shit, and then a drag bar opens and it's done. That's what I thought happened. I did my research. There's a list of gay villages on Wikipedia. There's hundreds of them around the world, and their definition of a gay village is an urban area with generally recognised boundaries that unofficially forms a social centre for LGBT people. Now, the word I was interested in that is unofficial. There's no official body declaring which areas are gay villages. It just happens organically, naturally. There's the Castro in San Francisco, very famous gay village. It just happened naturally. I felt like there should be an official body declaring which areas are gay villages, so I created the Gayborhood Foundation. I opened a big website for them explaining who they are, what they do. The homepage image is by Lisa Scott Lee. What they exist to do is to publish a list every year of the official gayborhoods around the world. And here is that list. There's Broughton Street in Edinburgh, the Castro, San Francisco, and then nestled in there, I put King's Heath in Birmingham. I also put Chigwell in Essex, because that's where Alan Sugar lives. After I'd done this, I realised this can't get back to me. People can't realise I'm anything to do with it. They'll think it's a joke, a stunt. It won't work if people think I'm anything to do with it. It needs to feel natural and organic. So I created an alias, someone that could do this for me. I called him Ken Roberts. I imagined him to be a sort of American, New York, aging gay guy. Sort of guy that slept with a lot of musical theatre people, you know. They call his asshole Broadway, that kind of guy. Did a painting of what I imagined him to look like, just so I could get in his head. A kind of gay Wayne Lineker is what I was going for. If you don't know Wayne Lineker, treat yourself to his Instagram after the show. He's Gary Lineker's brother, looks just like Gary Lineker if Gary was a joint of beef that had been left in a bag. And I said, I'm buying some paint, I'm doing the living room. And he said, are you doing it yourself? And I said, yeah. And he said, have you painted before? And I said, no. And he went, ooh. And I said, oh no, I tell a lie, I've done this one of Paul Chuckles, sorry. He said, well, I don't much like that. Oh, well, Paul Chuckle was fucking thrilled with it, actually, so... This thing is so silly. I did that painting as an exercise. I just thought he had a funny face. I thought I'd paint his face. And I put it on Twitter, didn't send it to him. Somebody did, because he got in touch. He said, Joe, I love that painting you've done of me. My wife got me some paints for Christmas. I want to learn how to paint. If you send me the one you've done of me, I'll do one of you. This is a Paul Chuckle original. It sort of looks like me crossed with the Joker after a stroke, but I'm happy with it. Right, let's talk about art now. I'd like to talk about art. Yeah, a bit of culture. My mother retired a few years ago, and she's now painting in her retirement. This is one of my mother's paintings. Isn't that glorious? This is of our family friend Patrick. Not only does it look like Patrick, I feel like it captures his essence. It's a beautiful painting. Based on these, I've been inspired to do my own. They've not come out as well, I'm going to be honest with you. I did one of Amanda Holden with a Britain's Got Talent buzzer for a head. Slightly different things that we're doing. Mum will do this sort of thing, two women on a bench having a conversation, beautiful, skillful watercolour there, the skill and the time it takes to do something like that. I did a man having coffee poured in his arse. We're just doing different things. We're doing different things. This came out of, I was on holiday with a friend of mine who just had a colonic irrigation. I've never had one, so I was like, what's it like? He's like, I've not had one either. This girl, quite attractive, took me into a room, put a tube up. I thought the tube did everything, but actually she took it out, stood me over this thing, and then just said, go. And she said, I can wait here, I can wait outside, whatever you want. I was like, who's asking her to stay? No, look me in the eye. I'd like us to share this. So based on that, I did this painting. I haven't got a name for it yet. I was thinking maybe Britain in springtime, but I'm open to suggestions. Do send your tweets in. This art thing has got to a bit of a head just this week, actually. Mum and I, we submitted to the Royal Academy. Every year, the Royal Academy take paintings from amateurs, from professionals, whatever. They also take sculptures. Mum submitted 2 of her paintings, beautiful paintings. I submitted for a laugh. I knew I wasn't going to get in. I submitted this sculpture, which I called Chris. I made it pissed last summer. I just submitted it, forgot about it. A few weeks later, I got an email from the Royal Academy that read this. Dear Joe, it's come to our attention that the price of your artwork, Chris, is £10.5 million. I was originally going to do 10 and I thought, fuck it, put the other half on. Owing to the high selling price, we just wanted to check this was correct, and this is what we would like to have printed in our list of works, should your work be selected for the exhibition. If you did wish for this to be the published price, could you kindly advise on the insurance value of the work? Well, I went back to them and I said, gosh, did I really put £10.5 million? It should be £12.5 million. And then just put Brexit for no reason. I recently took it to Bonhams to get it valued. They asked me to leave, but I expect the insurance value is $4.99 or the equivalent in Argos vouchers. Didn't receive a reply, didn't expect a reply, to be honest. I thought, right, it's not going to get in. Suddenly, we both get emails. Mum's paintings rejected. Chris is in. I go to the Royal Academy. I went there on Monday. There I am outside, very excited. All the other sculptures are on plinths. I'm like, bloody hell, Chris is going to be on a plinth in the Royal Academy. The Royal Academy of Art in bloody London. Walking around, can't find him anywhere. They've only put him in the fucking corner, haven't they? Gee. He is available to purchase for £12.5 million. I will not accept offers. Alan Sugar and I are 2 raging bulls locked in a perpetual and never-ending feud. I met him briefly once at a recording of the TV programme The Apprentice, You're Fired. He was rude and dismissive, and from that moment I was delirious with the desire to paint him. 10 years came and went when my phone pinged with a message from none other than Lord Sugar, saying that as it happens he was filming The Apprentice in Birmingham that day, but that the episode was dragging on fucking longer than my fucking arse. That's my impression of Alan Sugar, which I didn't really understand as a phrase. I told him he'd be very welcome for a glass of something fizzy, and he replied straight away, do you have crisps? So I wrote, yes, I have crisps, and he said, what sort of crisps? And I said, McCoy's, sorry, I've forgotten who I am there, McCoy's crisps, and he wrote, what flavour of McCoy's crisps? And I said, flame grilled steak and cheddar and onion McCoy's crisps, and actually I've got 1 bag of the Chip Shop's curry sauce flavour too. He was there within 20 minutes. Fun fact, Alan Sugar loves crisps, and I actually found his bank statement from Crisps Bank, and it's just all crisps. 90 grand on knickknacks there, a full mill on quavers. His mood was more jocular on this occasion, making cheeky little jokes and nibbling his crisps. He'd say things like, I'm just going to run to the loo. No, actually, I'll walk. And then giggle to himself, giddy with delight. It was lucky I'd bought a multi-pack of crisps, because he must have got through 6 or 7 bags, all while skittishly sliding along the kitchen tiles in his socks. Eventually, I punctured the convivial mood with a question that silenced him. Might you sit for a painting, Lord Sugar? He stopped in his tracks, crunched the crisp that was still in his mouth purposefully, swallowed, then said, you fucking what? I mean, we don't have to. I like to paint. I'm just joshing with you, you fucking art nonce. I'd love to. He giggled again. The relief was intense. I beckoned him towards an armchair, but he had other ideas. Nah, fuck that. I'm going to hide. This is all true. It's unbelievable, isn't it? Try and paint me while I hide.
paint me while you hide. How would I even? It was too late. He was already jaunting up the stairs, chuckling to himself like a little gremlin. Brackets from the film Gremlins. I heard his animated footsteps above me on the landing like the excitable scuttling of a toddler on Christmas morning. I shouted up, "Alan, come on now, don't be silly." I could hear things falling off shelves. "Catch me, you fucker," came the impish reply, followed by more pitter-patter and the turning of doorknobs. "You're a fucking postman," he yelped. Then, "Your dad is good with electrics but probably couldn't do a full rewire." I don't understand what that means. I have learned from occasionally looking after my friends' children and through various engagements with Rob Beckett that you cannot pander to this sort of behaviour. You must ignore it. I retired to the kitchen. I sat and sipped my wine, hoping he would eventually run out of steam. But the sniggering upstairs crescendoed with every passing moment. More doors opening, things falling, a couple of smashes, a couple of cries of, "Put the heating on, you pedo," before the man stopped. Followed by about 4 minutes of total and concerning silence. Then 3 sinister taps, as if from a fingernail on glass. Where was it coming from? 3 more, followed by tittering that sounded like it was coming from outside. I glanced out at the garden, at the restless summer afternoon, lengthened shadows under a blue sky. No one was there. Another chuckle. It was coming from above. I looked up, and there in the dwindling afternoon, in my kitchen skylight, was Lord Alan Sugar, squealing with delight. "You fucking found me!" He beamed. I imagine that's how he laughs. I cannot underestimate, dear reader, for him to have required some considerable gymnastics. That skylight is normally only accessible via a tall ladder. "Don't move," I shouted. "I'll paint you in that exact position." As I looked above at him, despite being at least 12 feet away and through a sheet of bulletproof glass, installed for security purposes after a threatening message from Sue Barker. In some strange way, I felt we were closer than ever. He seemed so vulnerable. The resulting painting is this. I'm sure you'll agree. It's a remarkable and accomplished feat of artistic engineering. Lord Sugar's expression became far less amused as he had to remain in position on top of my kitchen skylight for 3 hours. He was cold and had run out of crisps, so he was eating the moss from my roof tiles. I think it's a more accurate depiction of the man than any I have seen. He left quietly, leaving 10 grand in cash on the kitchen counter for any damages before being collected by a Toyota Yaris. An Uber pool that I believe dropped everyone else off first. Thank you very much. That's the Alan Sugar chapter. Thank you.
This is my art hole, 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 come into my art hole.
When making the book, we sort of reflected on my history, and Robert Peston actually is a huge part of my history. So he's painted in the book, and he's the ITV political correspondent, if you don't know who he is. And this is the next chapter I'd like to read to you. Ever since I was a little girl, I've been enthralled by colour. I remember bouncing on my auntie's knee in the dappled sunlight of our family garden in South Birmingham as she patiently pointed at the flowers and asked me to identify the shade of each one in turn. Sapphire! Gamboge! Cerulean! I thought I was just making adorable noises. It transpires I was actually born with an innate understanding of pigments. My auntie was obsessed with colour in a different way. She was a racist. But those halcyon days beneath the pear trees would form the boy, and then the teenager, and then the teen, and then the young woman, and now the disgraced man I have become today. It's not been an easy journey. In the hot summer of 1994, around my 6th birthday, my parents took me on a trip to London to kickstart my career in show business. I had a beautiful and an angelic singing voice, which was once described by the pre-audition team on The X Factor as nice but not quite right. And so my mother and father strongly believed I could and should be a child star. Having grown up in Birmingham, the bright lights of the capital seemed brighter than any I had seen. London was way different back then. No mobile phones, no Elizabeth line, no congestion charging zone. You didn't really have to respect women, and no one would judge you if you kicked a gay person over. Simpler, happier times. No branches of Leon, Wasabi, or Five Guys, but there was, as there is now, and has always been, and is now, a Boots. As there always was. The young Joe Lycett stood outside Boots' Piccadilly Circus branch, clutching his mother's hand with his mouth wide open, in complete flabbergasted wonder at the size and stature of that extraordinary branch. My mouth was also open because I'm asthmatic, and it makes it easier to breathe. To that boy entering it, it was as if entering something else really big, like a car park or a field, but that car park or field is a Boots.
Also perusing the shelves of Boots that day, picking up some ibuprofen and a sandwich, was Robert Peston. At that time, he was working at the Financial Times, a thin, bespectacled man with a perennial look of concern on his face. Fate colluded that day so that both Peston and I found ourselves staring into the famous long Boots sandwich fridge at exactly the same moment. "There's a lot of sandwiches, aren't there, little fella?" That's my impression of Peston. He said, smiling down at me. He was stood next to and clearly angling for a prawn sandwich. I clung to my mother's leg, saying nothing. "Oh, yes, there are a lot of sandwiches. You like sandwiches, don't you?" she said, encouraging me to engage. Yet I sensed from subtle movements in her leg that she too was brimming with fear. I nodded, that's all I had. Words had become as elusive to me as the meaning of the universe, or the reason that Eamon Holmes does what he does. "And what sort of sandwiches do you like, chap?" Peston was trying his best. "Chicken?" I shook my head. "Oh, OK. Cheese ploughmans?" I shook it again. He had only one option left. Prawn? I didn't even really like prawns, but in that moment the sound of the word was almost soothing. I nodded enthusiastically. Robert let out a deep sound resembling an O, but it was more abstract than that. "Well, that is a surprise. I didn't think you liked prawns," said Mother, effortlessly transforming from caregiver to snitch. "Gosh, OK, well, that does put us in quite a quandary, because I too was hoping for a prawn sandwich, and I don't know if you've noticed, but there's only one prawn sandwich left." He literally had his hand on the fucking thing. My eyes darted round the fridge like darts in a fridge. The bastard was right, only one prawn sandwich, Peston's fingers already caressing the waxy cardboard box. "I'm sure you can have a different sandwich, little Joe. You like cheese, don't you?" My mother had now assumed the role of his chief negotiator. The woman had thrown me under the bus. Brackets, this is a turn of phrase, and for legal reasons I should clarify my mother has never once thrown me under a bus, but did once try and push me into a canal. "Oh, I can go and find somewhere else to get one," Peston said, unconvincingly. The saliva was practically dripping out of the guy's mouth for that prawn sandwich. "Don't be silly. Joe doesn't even really like prawns. You take it honestly," said the scab, my mother. "Cheers, little fella," he said as he floated away gleefully holding what I will forever consider to be my prawn sandwich. The rest of the trip to London was completely ruined. I refused any other sort of sandwich, and Mum started ignoring me, which I later learned is a parenting technique. She's since tried to convince me that pushing me into a canal is a parenting technique, but I'm yet to have that backed up with empirical data. I refused to participate in all the auditions, never got my chance to play ensemble in Oliver or ensemble in Billy Elliot or Annie in Annie. And what's more, I'd become undeniably obsessed with prawns. On one day alone, I estimate I ate approximately 300 prawns. This is all true. This is a very sad story for me. I began to throw them back like roasted nuts. They don't tell you on the packaging because they presume you're only going to have a few, but eating 300 prawns is really bad for you. I began to take time out of school, missing out on further sporting and academic opportunities, and my friendship group dwindled to one lad called Andy. Brackets, his dad was a fishmonger. My parents remortgaged the house to fund my addiction and eventually became financially destitute, until my father decided to buy some shares in the hope they might pull us out of the hole that we were in, and so he picked up a copy of the Financial Times. The details are blurry, but Mum spotted Peston's picture in the paper and put two and two together, and in their desperation my parents decided to sue, using the company who had the television adverts where the woman with the vile fringe slips over at work and it isn't her fault. She has no one but herself to blame for the fringe. To this day, not a penny has been clawed back. Peston's team have put most of their eggs in the basket of Mum saying that I didn't like prawn sandwiches, but annoyingly, if we don't win the case, we have to pay our legal fees and Peston's as well, so I believe the plan is to keep appealing until he dies. To recoup some of the fees, I did this painting of Peston in jail where he belongs, for scuppering my chances of childhood stardom. The painting was purchased for £8 million by Steph McGovern. All true. A few years after that first encounter with Peston, whilst walking along one of Birmingham's canals, Mum asked me what I wanted for lunch, and I said prawns, and in what she later described to the social services as an unfortunate, ill-tempered moment, pushed me into the water saying, "See if you can find any in there, you little twat." It's the Peston chapter. Thank you very much. Thank you.
This is my art hole, 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 this is my art hole.
The day great Aunt Shirley died is seared in my memory forever. A black and hopeless day, the only light in that endless gutter of grief was the Premier League footballer Jack Grealish. My great-aunt Shirley was like a mother to me, nurturing and stoic, but also like a father because she was obsessed with golf and left shits in the bowl the size of a small dog. She had been in Birmingham's QE hospital for 8 days, in and out of consciousness, when the doctor, rushed and forlorn, told us she was nearing the end of her life. The words were incomprehensible, because he was, as many staff are at the QE, on cocaine. Laughter of recognition in the room. The sadness was soon dispersed by audible excitement outside in the wider ward, the sounds of tittering, doctors scrambling for their phones, and patients climbing from their deathbeds. "OMG," came one voice. "Look, Sandra, it's Jack Grealish." Grealish was there on a visit to see some sick children and show them footballs and how nice he looked in his kit. He was stopping and taking photographs with whoever asked, charming, handsome, thoughtful, and dare I say it, pretty fit. I knew I had to seize the opportunity, even for the briefest of moments, for her to meet Jack Grealish. I stepped out into the ward and approached tentatively. "Jack," I said, "my great-aunt Shirley is dying. You are her favourite footballer. Might you sit with us for a while?" "It would be my great honour," he replied, bowing his head all the way to the floor. I asked if he was being sarcastic, to which he said probably September, and we entered. This is a very sad story, actually. Cousin Liz was quickly removed to make space for Grealish because, like the rest of the family, Aunt Shirley thought Liz was a loser. "Go and get a coffee, and while you're there, maybe see if you can get a life," said Uncle Tim, handing her a £5 and his Costa Coffee Club loyalty card. "If you don't get a stamp, don't come back." "Great Aunt Shirley," I whispered, "it's your favourite football player, Jack Grealish." She stirred, opened her eyes, and began to cry. "My favourite footballer is Frank Lampard," she said. Far from hurt, Jack sat beside her, took hold of her hand and leant in to speak. "I'm sorry I'm not Frank Lampard. If there was any way I could become Frank Lampard, to still your pain and soothe your soul, please know, Shirley, that I would do it for you." She smiled. "You are a kind boy," she said, and dropped a tab of acid that had been given to her by the hospital caretaker. That would have been a better line if I hadn't had a stroke while I was saying it. There, sweet Shirley," he said, taking her hand and softly rubbing the back of it with his thumb. "I know you are frightened, but let us not dwell on graves and grief. Death is not to be feared. You reach your hand out into the abyss, and what do you feel? There is nothing to feel but love. Wherever, whatever next, it will not and cannot be without love. Remember, my dear Shirley, the words of Dylan Thomas. Though lovers be lost, love shall not." Shirley's mouth had begun to curl into a contented smile, from his words, but also probably because of the tab of acid. "Thank you, Jack Grealish," he whispered. "Thank you for everything." "Don't thank me. I've told you nothing you did not already know yourself," he purred. "Are you comfortable? Do you need anything?" "I am hungry. Might you get me a raw onion?" she said. Astonishingly, Jack produced one from his pocket, which he began to eat like an apple. "There is one other thing you can help with," she said, raising a finger. "My nephew, the irritating, effeminate one." She was pointing at me. "His hot point fridge is just not cooling properly. A real man would be able to fix it, but he is a limp-wristed arse bandit with no applicable skills." This is a very sad story, actually. "Might you be able to restore it?" "Interesting," said Grealish, stroking his chin. "Is it a faulty thermostat or dirty condenser coils?" "Neither," I said. "I will have it working by morning," he said. Hearing those words, calmly and peacefully, Great Aunt Shirley finished her onion and slipped away, brackets died. Jack stayed with us, silent, unless spoken to, fixing my hot point fridge in white, which I brought to the bedside. We said our goodbyes to Shirley's brittle body, and once I'd kissed her on her cold and sunken forehead, Jack took hold of the back of my head with his palms and looked into my eyes. "Joe, I've fixed your hot point fridge in white. The refrigerant was leaking because of a faulty valve," he said. "When a mountain appears unassailable, you will find a way. Remember that grief is the price of love, and the price of the replacement valve will be £65 plus VAT. Shirley's life, your life, the life of a hot point fridge in white, even my life, they are all transient. But so is sorrow. It will pass. All of us are destined to return home one day, to see out the rest of the seasons, listen closely to the morning dew, smell faint winds of rice and wine, take earth and ash in our fists, sip in the light of the moon. Do not despair, dear Joe. Your legacy will live on, my child, through your friends and family, but probably not through your artworks, which are undeniably shit. And with that, he slipped away, brackets left quietly. As he walked out, I heard him say to one of his minders, "Let's get out of this shithole, it smells like a fucking human abattoir." Thank you very much.
This is my art hole, 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 come in